Hi guys, welcome back for day 2 of using figurative language in your writing. Yesterday we talked about how to add similes and metaphors, and today we get to add onomatopoeia. If you'll remember from your video earlier, onomatopoeia is when you basically write in sound effects. And onomatopoeia is really cool because it's fun to say, and it can make your reader feel more like you're writing a movie, like you're there. So let's talk about how you as a writer will add onomatopoeia. All right. And the steps to adding onomatopoeia are first, find a spot in your writing where describing the sound of something would enhance your writing. So that enhance right here means to make it better. And so you're going to find a spot where describing the sound is going to make your story better. So don't just randomly add it, but find a spot where something is happening. Again, action's a great spot for that. And describe the sounds that are happening in that action. So after you find the spot, then you're going to think about possible ways to make the sound and to write the sound. So some things we already know, like if you're going to say thunk as something drops into a bucket, there's a pretty common sound for that and a pretty common spelling. Or if you're making animal sounds, moo, we all know you mean a cow. But some sounds you might want to make up your own. You might want to practice it and rehearse, like, how would that sound? How am I going to write it so it feels real? After you decide the way you want it to sound and how you want to write it, then you add it to your writing. Let me show you some examples using the paragraphs I was working with yesterday. All right, so we're back to the example of Thomas and Kaleem going into that gym to play basketball. I added in a simile that I came up with yesterday, and now I'm looking for a spot for some onomatopoeia. I'm going to read it again, and as I read, I'm going to be thinking, what sounds would I be hearing if this was a movie? Thomas and Kaleem opened the door to the gym like the door to a secret room. Oh, there's my simile. The rec manager must have forgotten to lock up, and they now had the room all to themselves. They walked in, and Kaleem pulled a basketball off the cart. Thomas tossed his jacket off to the side and tightened the laces on his shoes. Kaleem bounced the ball to Thomas. Thomas checked it back to Kaleem. Game on. As I was reading it, there were two spots that in my brain movie I heard sounds. The first one was when he opened the door. I almost heard like a creak, so maybe I want to show the door's really squeaky. That might work. The other spot that I really heard the sound was when when Kaleem bounced the ball. If you've ever been in the gym on that like carpet and you bounce a basketball, especially if you're like the first one in there, and there's that dunk, dunk, dunk. It's a magic sound, I tell you. I know it's going to be fun when I hear that sound. I'm like, yes, let's do this. So I was thinking about those two spots, and then I thought, which spot would be more interesting? Which one meant more to me, and I want to share that with my reader. You could probably tell by when I described it. I want to show people that thunk, thunk sound of the basketball. So I'm going to write that. Thunk, thunk. Kaleem bounced the ball to Thomas. Ooh, maybe I want to say thunk. Kaleem bounced the ball to Thomas. Thunk. Thomas checked it back to Kaleem. Game on. Maybe that's the sound of Kaleem bouncing it once to Thomas, and Thomas catches it, and then Thomas bounces it once back to Kaleem to check the ball. That's what I want to do. So I changed my mind. I don't want two there. I want one here and one there. That makes my reader hear the same sound I'm hearing. All right, so that's one example of how I could use onomatopoeia and in kind of like a sports story. Let's look at that other one where Karina is trying to escape the dragon. Karina dragged her bare feet through the wet grass. It was late and she was tired, but she still didn't know which direction she should go. She was glad that she had escaped the dragon, but now she had a new worry. What if she never made it home? What if the dragon had carried her so far that she never found home again? Suddenly, she heard the dragon closing in on her. She went into a large bush and hid. She was a shaking fly in a spider's web. She hid her face in her hands to keep from crying. So you can see that metaphor I added. She's a shaking fly in a spider's web. This one was harder for me. Where would I have sounds? Well, I thought at first I could make a sound when she dragged her bare feet through the wet grass. That might be a good way to get my reader to picture what's happening. She also heard the dragon closing in on her. Maybe I could describe the dragon's sound. Maybe I want to do both. All right, so Karina dragged her bare feet through the wet grass. What would that sound like? Swish, swish. Oh, that sounds kind of happy. I want to show she's tired. Schlup, schlup. Ooh, I like that. That maybe is more of the sound I'm looking for. Ooh, how am I going to spell that? Schlup. I think that's how I'm going to spell it. Schlup. Karina dragged her bare feet through the wet grass. Yeah, I think that's the sound I want my reader to hear. Cool. Suddenly she heard the dragon closing in on her. Ooh, suddenly she heard the screech. Yeah. Suddenly she heard the screech of the dragon closing in on her. So it doesn't always have to just be a sound. I can also add it into my sentence. Suddenly she heard the screech of the dragon closing in on her. Yep, that's how I want my story to sound. All right, so this is your strategy. Today in your quick write, I'm going to challenge you to take a boring paragraph, add in a simile or a metaphor, and add in an onomatopoeia. I can't wait to see what you write.